Welcome to your Washington, D.C. area real estate market report for June of 2025. I'm Edward Slavis with the Slavis Group of LPT Realty, and let us begin as always with interest rates. Interest rates for a 30-year fixed are 6.89%. Since January, this chart only goes back through March, but since January, the rates have basically bounced between 7 and as low as 6.7. They're now back to 6.89. We want to see this number come down, obviously, make money cheaper, give buyers more purchasing power, give a little bit more fuel to this market. But this is what it is. We're still at 6.89 as we approach July. Our clients are getting better than this. This is just a national average. It depends on obviously your income, your debt to income ratio, your credit score, the percentage of your down payment, etc. If you're curious what you qualify for or what rate you would qualify for, let us know. We'll be happy to introduce you to one of our preferred lenders. Now, we've had this slide here the last few months. We call them Doge predictions, and of course, it's not just Doge. It's also insecurity or instability in the Middle East, or in Russia, in Ukraine. It's tariffs, economic uncertainty, plus Doge. We're just calling it the Doge predictions. So there were two. One, the market would tank because there would be an increase in supply, or two, the market would tank because there would be a decrease in demand. Either sellers would flood the market with homes, or the bottom would drop out of the demand because too many people lost their jobs or didn't want to buy with higher rates and the uncertainty. So let's look and see if those are true. First, if we look at new listings, these are new listings for the last 5 years in the DC metro area. So not just DC proper, but the surrounding metro area. And it's all home types, detached homes, row homes, condos, everything. Now, as you can see, they peaked in 2021, dropped in 2022, 2023, a little bit higher 24, maybe a little bit higher in 25, but they are certainly down substantially from that peak in 2021. And we'll have more on that coming up at the end of this presentation here. Rates started increasing in March of 2022, so just one bar to the right of where it says February. Rates more or less tripled from about 2.5 up to just above 8. So a big increase in interest rates, and many sellers responded by not listing their homes for sale. This is the year over year. So it's above the solid black line. There were fewer than that month of the previous year. If it's below it, then obviously there were fewer. It's based on percentage. So if you look in May of 2023, that number was about 45% less than in May of 2022. So big drops there. Importantly here, for the last year and a half, it's basically been flat. So May of 2025 had almost exactly the same number of new listings as May of 2024. Interest rates were still high then, but obviously it was well before the election, much less Doge and all the other changes we've had in the last several months. The median home sale, this is now broken down: red for detached homes, blue for all home types, and yellow for condos. What's the actual effect on prices with a drop in listings? A drop in supply should lead to an increase in prices, and we actually are seeing that. All three of these lines are trending upwards, and you can see some slight corrections here in the center, which could be the initial shock of the interest rates. That also could just be a seasonal correction. Overall, the trend line of all three of these are increasing. So for the last 5 years, even the median price of condos has gone up. And you can see the year-over-year change here. There are only a few months where we had lowering median sale prices than the previous year. The scale here is 10%. So really, for the last 5 years, you've had somewhere between 0 and 10%, call it a median of 5% increase year after year after year for median home sales. Median price per square foot looks very similar. All three lines trending upwards. Year-over-year change looks very similar. You had a few months here in the center, a few months previously for condos, but overall, month after month, the median sale price and median sale price per square foot are increasing for the DC metro area. And of course, this varies by neighborhood. There are some neighborhoods that are red hot and prices are higher. There are some neighborhoods that really the prices have corrected a lot and come down, a lot of excess inventory. But certainly for the median, for the area, if we saw a big macro change like Doge or like the overall effects of an uncertain economy, we would expect to see that somewhere here in the price per square foot. Closed sales, you can also see there is a highest in 2021, drops down and has stayed low, has not recovered. Again, more on this in a second. Here, closed sales, year over year, there were about 3 years in the center there, we had a decrease in the previous year. The last year or 18 months has more or less been flat, as if it's bottomed out a bit, but it's certainly not dropping. Months of supply is a calculation of supply and demand. I'll hear on the news all the time on CNBC or some clickbait headline of saying 10,000 new listings just hit the DC market or just hit some metro area. It's meaningless unless we know how many buyers there are. You need the other half of that equation to understand the supply and demand to see the effect on prices. And months of supply measures that. A month of supply is a measurement of how fast buyers are buying, or the term is absorbing the inventory. So if you have 10 homes on the market and 5 sell per month, you have 2 months of supply. Pretty straightforward. The lower the number, the better for homeowners or for sellers. The higher the number, the better for buyers. This is the most surprising chart to me because it starts off at about 2 months of supply. Everything goes down to between a half month and 1.5 months, and now it's climbed up to just above 2 and then just above 3 for condos. There's no hard and fast rule here, but generally speaking, below 2 or 3 is a seller's market. 3 might be more of a balanced market, but below 1 is a red-hot seller's market. Below 2 is a strong seller's market. Between 2 and 3 is a seller's market, maybe approaching balanced. So this peaks out here at, again, between 2 and 3 months of supply. It's still a very good market for a seller. All of these charts, however, are measuring just the homes that successfully sell. So if the home is listed and it's too expensive and it's canceled or expired or withdrawn, it would not reach into the sales data. And so while people may go and say, hey, from January 2022, the months of supply has doubled, or maybe 3x or 4x, depending on where we're starting this. Is that a cause for alarm? Well, no, because if we go back 10 years for months of supply, we are now at the months of supply we were back in the summer of 2019. And in 2019, I can tell you, everyone thought it was a red-hot market. People were buying, people were selling, prices were going up, there was low inventory, or seemingly low inventory. Certainly in 2015, when there was 4 months of supply, I remember that very well. And that, to me, again, seemed like a very strong market. There was no fear of trepidation about market corrections or anything else. So in a way, we got spoiled here in early 2022 with interest rates at 2.5%. Every buyer came out of the woodwork, and that, in a way, is just an anomaly. This is much more, 2 months of supply is much more normal, and I'll tell you, when I talk to agents in other areas of the country, they would die to have 2 months, only 2 months of supply. Because many of them have 5, 6, 7 months of supply throughout their entire market, not just certain neighborhoods like we have it. Closed sales, again, going back 10 years, you can see it was consistently around 7,500, and then all of a sudden dropped down, and now we're at about 5,000 closed sales during the peak months. So the frequent Doge predictions, is there an increase in supply? No. Supply is basically flat. Is there a decrease in demand? No. The closed sales is basically flat. Okay. So far, we've been doing this slide now for several months. We still have not seen that massive Doge effect. Not in terms of the prices, certainly. But the market is slower. So I broke this down. Left side are the new listings per month for the first 5 months of 2021. You had the slowest month was January, which is 6,079 new listings, or 41,000 total. Fast forward to this year, the busiest month was 6,063. So the slowest month in 2021 had more new listings than the biggest month, and it should be the spring market. April should be the busiest new listing month of the year. So you can see a massive difference. Overall, we've had a 37.8% drop in total listings over that 4-year span, just taking these 5 months as a snapshot. So a 37, almost 38% drop in the number of new listings. A lot of sellers are choosing not to sell. They're either staying in the home longer or they're renting it out. And then on the closed sales, it's even bigger drop. So again, we had 31,000 closed sales the first 5 months of 2021. The slowest month was 4,416, which is January. So those homes are going under contract in December, which is usually a terrible month to, not a terrible month, but a very slow month in terms of home purchases for obvious reasons. Fast forward to this year, only 18,000 for the 5 months, a 40% drop. So January had 4,400. That was almost the second busiest month of 2025. So you can see a very, very big drop there. So 38% drop in new listings, and then a 40% drop in total number of homes selling based on this 5-month snapshot. So what does this mean? Are more homes being listed? No. Are home sales prices increasing? Yes. So fewer homes are being sold, but those that are selling for very, very good prices. And we see this a lot. In fact, I talked to a buyer today. I showed her a house down in Virginia, and she said, my husband and I have been going to a lot of open houses, and a lot of them are just not ready for the market. They do not present well. There's a very good chance those homes are not going to sell. Sellers have to properly prepare, price, and market the home, and you'll still get the price that you want. Based on months of supply, it is still a seller's market. That varies neighborhood to neighborhood, though, so if you want a private consultation, home evaluation, by all means, let us know. For buyers, there are still deals available. Some are still going to bidding wars. Those are going to be the hottest homes, but there are plenty of buyers we've represented recently that have gotten very good prices on homes that would have sold for considerably more 3 or 4 years ago. Furthermore, they're getting a good price, but they're also getting a home inspection, appraisal, financing protection. If there's a rent back, the seller's paying for it. It is actually a very, very good time to be a buyer. You won't get a deal on the interest rate, but you can get a deal on the house. You can also refinance at no upfront cost for 3 years with one of our preferred lenders. If that interests you, or otherwise you want a free consultation on buying in this market, let us know. That is your real estate market report for DC for June. As always, if you or someone you know is looking to buy or sell in the DC area, we'd love to be a resource for you. Please let us know. Thank you, and God bless. Take care.